so that I could go out at night. And I had this big sign, not big, this little sign in my. I had this little apartment on the west side, and it just had the number 75 on it. And if I knew if I calculated if I could make $75 a day, then I could afford to live in Nashville. So every day, no matter what I did, I would try to figure out how to make $75. And it worked, I'm still alive and breathing in Nashville. So
Intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations.
We are getting so close to the end of the year, and we're wrapping up our episodes for 2023. And before we introduce this next guest, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media at Hop Spirits. Don't forget to join our new Facebook group, Bourbon and Country Music, to get a little bit extra fun with us. And this week we have with a singer-songwriter. His debut album is out now. Let's welcome in. I'm going to try not to screw up his name because I told him I wouldn't. Welcome in Vinnie Paolizzi. Did I say that right?
Perfect. You said every letter. That's how you get that one right.
Well, we joked. I said I got almost to say it like how we're teaching our daughter right now. Sound out each letter and let's see how we do. So there we go. So see, even that works for me at my age.
Totally. So there's some lessons that you learn once and you keep learning over and over again.
Well, and you said those Italian names, they just throw in letters. So how bad have people butchered your last name?
Oh man. I mean, especially when I first moved to town and nobody really knew me, every lineup for like a show or a festival or anything, it was, and I understand the why for Vinny, because so many, like when I was in high school, the show Jersey Shore came out, the guy on there had the Y, everybody's going to give it the Y. I totally understand that. But like putting an O at the end of my last name when it clearly there's no O, or like an A, or putting extra O's in the middle. People like to add O's to the middle of my name too. So
it's like they just bought a bunch and just had to keep throwing them up there.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand. I grew up in an area where there was tons of Italian last names, and it was like not a big deal. But moving to the South, it's just not how it is. It's different.
Well, something that isn't different, at least I don't think so everywhere. This is called Bar Conversations, and we like to have a drink. I've got a little rye whiskey, little old Ezra, 7-year rye. What are you drinking tonight?
Oh, that looks good. We had a bottle of Jefferson's open, just the regular Jefferson's brand. I don't know if I'm alone in this camp, but I like lower proof bourbons. I like between 80 and 90. 110 proof does nothing for it. Honestly,
114.
Yeah, it goes like I have one of them, and I feel like I had 12, and it feels like it's a lot. But like a Maker's is a 90, or like a Basil Hayden's is an 80. Like between those two, and there's some 100 proofs. I've a Knob Creek 100 proof that I like a lot, but
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. There's something to knowing your sweet spot. For everyone, it's different. So now you mentioned a bunch of different bourbons. Are you a guy that likes to have a few bourbon bottles sitting around the house, or beer, tequila? What's your go-to bad habit?
I've been all of those bad habits. Bourbon is my favorite thing to drink, but the consequences of bourbon are sometimes a little bit too great for me. So like I could drink a tequila soda pretty much anytime you want with 2 crushed limes in it. If I'm going to drink all day, I'm probably going to be on that train. But as far as like the fall and winter drinking, red wine and bourbon are probably my two things. And since we got married last November, and we have gotten so many housewarming, wedding gift. Like I have so much bourbon that I will never. I mean, I'm gonna have to start regifting at some point because I have so many bottles of bourbon at the moment. So,
well, just make sure it's the duplicates. Just make sure it's the duplicates.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I'm not like a connoisseur, so I feel like I have a lot to learn, and maybe someone can come over and explain my collection to me at this point.
Hey, next time I'm down there.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
No, I totally get that, and it's one that I have enjoyed going down the rabbit hole. My wife gets mad at me these days, but it is what it is.
Louisville's great.
Exactly.
Lexington, Louisville, that whole area is great for it.
I there are worse places to be for bourbon.
Oh my gosh.
it's one of those things where I'm like, sometimes it's bad because we were talking about this the other day. Because we live in such an area that has it and people come here, like you don't find good deals. You don't
Oh,
find
interesting.
those, or those bottles like 5 years ago. you know, you can find Buffalo Trace everywhere here. Or
Yep.
6, 7 years ago when we first moved over here. Now you can find it, but it went from like a whole shelf to like one little line. So
Yeah.
there are some benefits and some drawbacks, but love where we live now. You grew up in a cool area in Western PA, is that right? Westchester?
Eastern PA, but the town is
Oh,
called
okay,
Westchester. Yeah, so
okay.
I grew up just outside of Philadelphia. Um, Most of my family lives in the Philly suburbs, kind of all within a 15-mile radius. And yeah, man, my family came over in like the 20s, and no one had ever left until I moved to Nashville. Like, my mom's got a huge family. She's one of seven with 1,000 cousins. My dad's one of
Were they
1 million
disappointed?
cousins. Disappointed's a tough. They they were confused. Like, you have everything you
That's
want
better.
here, and I was playing all the time. I was playing like, I think my last year I played 175 shows in Philly, but it was all like, you know one speaker in the corner of like a sports bar playing 3 hours of covers, and that they would be like. And I don't fault them for it, but they were like, "You're already doing your dream. Why do you have to leave? Like, you're playing music all the time and you get paid." And to their point, like, I was getting paid. I would play weddings and I would do private events. It was fine. I could make a living if I wanted to do it that way, but that is definitely not my dream. And unfortunately, the Philly music scene at that time, I'm not sure exactly what the state of it is, but at that time, for any sort of like singer songwriter or Americana stuff, it just wasn't happening there. And really the success stories out of Philly are Jim Croce from 1967 or whatever, when he left and went to LA, and Amos Lee, who left and went to New York and started opening for Nora Jones. And those are the two big singer songwriters that have made it from my area, and neither one of them did it out of Philly. So I was kind of doing the math in my head, like, I don't know if this is ever going to happen here.
Don't.
You know,
Yeah, not the
uh,
best odds.
yeah, and I took a bunch of trips to New York, and I just didn't feel like I fit in. I took a trip to LA for a while, and I just didn't really feel like not vibed. I hate that word, but I just didn't feel like it was my spot. And Nashville, I came here and I booked a couple little shows, and all of a sudden I was riding with people, and I think in just a week I was here, I met like 30 people that were all like, "Yeah, whenever you come back," like, and it felt like they meant it. Like, uh, let's write a song, let's get a beer. Like, it was all very supportive. Um, so I just kind of I figured also I didn't have a lot to lose at the time. I was 23 and I had nothing going on besides playing like weddings and sports bars. So I figured if worse comes to worse, I could just come back and do that.
I was gonna say
Uh,
those gigs would probably still be there.
they are still there, and they still pay the same amount that I've paid since 1991, or whatever year. But yeah,
Now,
uh,
since you grew up near Philly, are you like full on Philly sports fan too, or how does that work for you?
150,000%. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
I'm just gonna have to just cut off the interview then. I grew up near
Forget it.
Pittsburgh, so it is what it is.
Totally. You guys have way more championships, so it's great. I'm happy for you. Um,
We
I
also have
have
the Pirates, who haven't won in a long time.
yeah. It's the same thing with understanding where my parents were coming from. I understand where people are coming from when they don't like Philly sports fans. There's times when I don't like Philly sports fans, and I'm one of them. But when you grew up like where I grew up, you can't just not like them. And then I went to college in the city. Like, I went to school at Temple University, if you've ever heard of it, in in
Hmm.
in Philly. So I lived in the city for those 4 years and then a year or so afterwards. And you just it kind of gets in your DNA. I can't really explain it, and it's not as much as it is a college sports town, because there's so many, especially basketball, Villanova, St. Joe's,
Oh yeah, the Big Five.
LaSalle.
Hmm.
Yeah, uh, it really is a pro sports. I mean, the Eagles, especially now the Eagles are good. My whole lifetime, the Eagles have been pretty good. My parents' lifetime, they were horrible. I mean, we just get uh, kicked their asses kicked for a generation. But really, since I've been alive, the Eagles and the Phillies have been kind of the thing. So I feel kind of lucky for that. The Flyers, who were my favorite team growing up, have really disappointed me the last few years. But
That's all right. For those that are listening, watching, we record these a little bit ahead of time tonight. I was watching the Flyers Penguins game before this
oh
started,
yeah,
and I was going, oh my goodness, what are we doing wrong? Because you guys just kept getting shot after shot after shot, even when you were shorthanded. It was quite impressive.
they look okay this year. The first time in a decade you can say that. But
So
yeah,
there's hope.
I grew up playing ice hockey, and my dad and my sister both played in college, so we were a big time ice hockey family. So having the Preds here is great. I mean, my first couple of years here, the Preds were really good, so that was fun.
I was gonna say you're getting the best of both worlds, and you mentioned you grew up in a large family. Your family's all around there. How
Mhm.
important is family, and also kind of just where you grew up, teaching you of community? Because I feel like that's probably what you got when you moved to Nashville too, was a sense of community where you may not have got that in a few of the other places you tried.
100%. Yeah, I didn't realize that not everyone had like I always say this like I'm not exaggerating. From the airport to my parents' house, there's 50 to 75 houses I could stop for like dinner, and no one would say anything, and it'd be like totally. And I feel so lucky for that because I know a lot of people don't have that. But I grew up with like I had cousins and aunts and uncles that I could almost walk to all these houses, and um, I don't think that there's any like substitute for that. You know what I mean? I think that once you grow up with that, you're so used to it and so used to like your cousins are more like your siblings, and your family is kind of so involved in your life. And now even as we're my wife and I are expecting our first kid, and
Congratulations.
thank you, and my parents' first grandkid, her parents' first grandkid, my whole generation of
Oh,
cousins' first grandkid, like the
that
golden
kid's gonna
child.
be spoiled.
Yeah, so I hope that ours feel that way too, that they're just surrounded by, you know I will say at a certain point some of it can get a little suffocating. You never know. Not really in my experience, honestly, but I do know that is a feeling um that people have. So
I had so I come from like a smaller family, at least who we kind of hung out with, and
yeah.
then my wife's family, both of her sides are, one's from Northern Kentucky, one's from Louisville, and the Northern Kentucky side, like you said, they're still all kind of around there for the most part. And I
Yeah.
went to that Thanksgiving, and for the first time, there were like 70 people there. And when I got up to go to the bathroom, I lost my seat, and I was like, "What is happening?" Like that blew my mind because I just did not understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, last minute for Thanksgiving last week, my mom had to host, and she like with one day's notice had 30 people in my parents' house. Like, just and that wasn't even, not everyone came. Like that was just like a little get together.
Who could show
But
up?
yeah, no, exactly at the last minute. But moving to Nashville, I I I didn't know anyone. Like I didn't. I moved here. I didn't have a job. I I was an Uber driver. I told my parents I was going to be an Uber driver, so that's what I did, and I did my first Uber ride ever the second day I was here, and it was terrible. But I did it off and on for a couple of years. I ended up getting a job at a golf course. A super long story that you know. But I would just go to these little bars on the west side usually, and I would drink soda waters until it was like, and network, whatever you want to call it, just walk around and act awkward, really, and try to meet people. And then once it was time to like start driving people home, I would just get in my car and start driving people. Like that was the play. And then sometimes I would wake up at 5 in the morning and drive people to the airport, so that I could go out at night. And I had this big sign, not big, this little sign in my. I had this little apartment on the west side, and it just had the number 75 on it. And if I knew if I calculated if I could make $75 a day, then I could afford to live in Nashville. So every day, no matter what I did, I would try to figure out how to make $75, and it worked. I'm still alive, and breathing in Nashville. So
Well, and
that
you put out a whole full album.
I it's crazy, and they call it like 10-year town, whatever, and so far that seems to be about right. It's been six. It'll be six for me. I moved very poetically. I moved New Year's Day of 2018, so it'll be 6 years on this coming January 1st. Um, and this record like really is kind of the summation of the last 5 6 years in Nashville, and everything from the people who co-wrote on it, the people that produced it, the people that I used their studios because out of completely the kindness of their hearts. A lot of this record would not have happened without people being like, "Hey, yeah, you can use my studio after hours," because I couldn't afford any other way to do it. You know what I mean? And it was a lot of work. I mean, it took we started working on it last January. We recorded it in June, and then we didn't put it out till this year. So that was all 2022. Didn't put it out till this year, trying to save up every little penny to mix and master and get the vinyl and get the artwork and get the um but it really kind of came together into something that I'm, if nothing else, I'm immensely proud of it, and I'm so close to it now that I can't even see it objectively, but I just feel so connected to it that I'm happy that it's out in the world and getting listened to, you know.
Absolutely, as you should be. Now, did you grow up always having a love for music? Like, was it music like around you and just something you gravitated towards?
Yeah, I my family didn't really play, but my parents were huge, are still huge music fans. So, um, my dad always says he was the guy. He still has the crate. He used to bring the crate of vinyl to like parties. He was like the so he had this collection that was Jackson Brown, Eagles, tons of Allman Brothers, Marshall Tucker Band, Pure Prairie League. So like not quite country, but like in that, and huge Springsteen fan, obviously Beatles fan. Um, and then my mom had this whole collection of like 70s like funk and like because Philly has all these like soul, this whole history of that whole thing, and my mom for whatever reason like gravitated towards that kind of stuff. She had some jazz like George Benson records and stuff that like probably went straight over my head as a kid, but it was just so cool to like have, you know what I mean? And um my parents who are not pot people like love Bob Marley for some reason too. So like they constantly played that giant box set he has. That was on all the time in the summer. I'm like, this does not fit either of your personalities at all. But I'm glad it was there, you know. Um, but they were huge music fans. Huge. There's a radio station called WXPN. Uh, Back in Philly. It's affiliated with University of Pennsylvania, but kind of at least regionally famous for their kind of singer songwriter kind of eclectic. They have two venues that they host at their big building downtown too. So it's like kind of a part of the community. And my parents were big supporters of them, and it was a member supported kind of deal. And got all the compilation CDs they would put out every year. They had a lot of CDs too. I was kind of perfect kid age for CDs. Like my parents had so many, and CDs weren't that expensive because it was kind of going away. You know what I mean? So we had a ton of CDs at our house.
Well, and then correct me if I'm wrong. You talk about being at the top of the show. I mentioned you're a songwriter, singer,
Hmm.
all that. Were you starting
Yeah,
to write music and lyrics in middle school? Like kind
yeah.
of just
It's
gravitated toward that?
so bad, dude. So bad. I was so lame. Um, no, I like I this I'm not even gonna pretend. I'm not gonna lie. I started playing the viola in the third grade orchestra. The viola is slightly bigger than a violin, and I will say I stuck with it. I played all the way through senior year of high school. I stuck with the orchestra and did the thing. I didn't quit like everybody, all the cool kids did. Uh, but when I was in like fifth grade, sixth grade, all my friends, this friend group I really wanted to be a part of, not really my friends, were all playing guitar. There was three guys in particular that all played guitar, and one of them played drums. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And I thought guitar was so hard that I started playing the drums because I thought that'd be easier. And I got a drum set, and that turns out I'm not a very good drummer. I still love playing drums. If I still have pieces of my drum set in this room behind me, but um, I learned you couldn't really write songs on drums. And when I had those middle school heartbreak feelings we all have, You just had to get them out with terrible songs. Uh, so basically, I bet I my parents told me if I got straight A's for a semester, then they would give me $100, which to me was like that's
Hey,
the
that's not
most
bad.
money that I was always the kid that like I would put just enough effort to get B's and then not do anything. And they were like, if you get A's, we'll give you so they gave me $100, and I bought a Squire Stratocaster that came with an amp and a guitar strap, and I started playing every AC/DC song, and I took lessons for like 9 or 10 months with. I have an uncle that plays, and um, but then it was all kind of a vehicle to write songs. I wasn't really interested in being like a. I'm still not really interested in being like a shreddy guitar player. I love playing guitar. I love playing guitar for other artists. I do that kind of as like a side thing still, but I I've never been like, man, I want to learn every solo note for note. Like when I was playing music, I was trying to use it as a vehicle. So I would learn just enough piano, and I still know just enough piano to be able to write a song if all I have is a piano, and I know just enough bass that if someone calls me and is like, "Hey, you want to come play for a night?" I could figure it out. I mean, I stink, but I could figure it out for a night. You know what I mean? So I think the participate as I'm talking about this, I think the participation aspect of music, and I've heard Springsteen talk about that before, where he would go to shows and be like, "I just want to be as good as the worst guy that's up there, like the guy you can barely even hear, but at least he's like doing it." And I think that was part of it for me too. I just wanted to have a piece of the band or the group or the friends, whatever. So
Well, and you're definitely doing that, and you talked about kind of growing up around music, and your parents having quite the eclectic
yeah,
collection. What music did you grow up on that you loved back in the day that kind of maybe made an impact on you?
yeah, all the stuff that they had wasn't like hard rocking enough for me. I my first album I bought was AC/DC Live, and it was 13. I mean, AC/DC is awesome. They're still, honestly, Malcolm Young is still my favorite guitar player of all time. He wrote all those riffs, so cool. Um, but then, as it does, like, I was perfect John Mayer age. Like, John Mayer was the coolest thing, and all the girls love John Mayer songs, and you had to learn like five of them if you wanted to be, considered a real guitar player at my middle school. Uh, so he had that Where the Light Is show, which is it was he did the first set acoustic, then he did the blues trio thing he was doing for a while, and then he did like a full on like full production set, and it was like produced as like a movie, and it came out when I was whatever in 8th grade or something, and I remember trying to learn like at least part of every song for that whole thing. Like the acoustic songs, some of them were like way too hard. He was really good, and he had all these crazy tunings and shit. But um, man, I, like that was kind of if you were playing guitar in 2008, like everyone was like, "Okay, John Mayer," like that was the thing. And as much as I hate to admit it, like I wanted to be that guy. Um, what else, man? I listened to so much stuff. I really started getting into my parent like what my parents listened to, like probably in high school, college-ish, with like the Jackson Brown was my dad's favorite and kind of still is my favorite songwriter. That 70s songwriter stuff. Um, but then in college, I was the perfect Mumford and Sons age too, so it was like fake bluegrass, emotional bluegrass, I call it, or you just yell over like little banjo parts. But that stuff was taking off when I was in college. Um, so yeah, man, there was all kinds of like eras almost. Not to Taylor Swift quote, but there was so many like iterations of what I listened to. I will say the bands I played with in high school, I was playing in rock bands, so like we would just learn enough songs for a party. So like we learned three Red Hot Chili Pepper songs. We'd learn, you know, a couple Pearl Jam songs, all that stuff. And I had to get straight out there as the singer, and no one told me I stunk. like so bad. I couldn't sing until like 2 years ago. I swear to God, and nobody told me, and I haven't forgiven anybody for it. Uh,
They were just
but
all laughing in the background, and you didn't know
yeah,
it.
it's unbelievable. These people are they say they're your friends, like they say they're your friends. Um, but I was in this group of friends like I was talking about, and everyone was like loved playing, but no one would sing. Like they were like just mortified. High school boys trying to sing in front of girls, it should be illegal. It's it's torture, and I understand why they felt that way. But they would trot me out there because you could have a band if you have someone singing. So
Hmm.
I was just the guy. So
Well, I
that was
mean,
a long answer to a short question. Sorry.
well, but I mean, like it's funny you mentioned that because I remember watching. I don't know if it was on like the Graham Norton show or one of them, and they were doing like Ed Sheeran, like like
Yeah.
from his height, and oh my god, like
Yeah.
so you're not the only one. I mean, hey, there's worse people to be compared to than Ed Sheeran. Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
he's
true.
come a long way from
Yeah.
his early days as well.
You also have to start somewhere. I mean, I'm so jealous of these people that just like they grow up and they just can sing. You know, you can just there are people like that like I have a friend who has perfect pitch. Like you can say sing an F sharp and he'll sing an F sharp and it's insane. I thought he was lying about it for years. But like these people that have just this ability to make sounds with their mouth. I did not grow up like that. I grew up in the just hurt your like the Dave Matthews Band, hurt yourself until you make the right note kind of school of thought. So
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I still can't carry a tune, and we've been trying to put our daughter in dance and music class just so she has a fighting chance.
yeah. I'm hoping I can introduce my kids to music but not make them feel like they need to be into it. You know, I would love them to have it as part of their life, but I don't want them to feel like they need to follow in any footsteps because God knows I don't know how I ended up where I'm at, but it definitely wasn't because my parents pushed me here.
Well, it's been a fun ride, I'm sure. And you talk about getting down to Nashville and kind of doing some different things. You kind of went the songwriting first route first, right? Like kind of doing some of that. I know you're playing like some of the songwriter rounds, things like that. But
Yeah, yeah,
why kind of stick in the songwriter realm a little bit there at the beginning and even to this day?
yeah, man. I gotta be honest. I had no plan when I moved here. I was I give myself a little bit of shit here and there, but I knew I was a pretty good guitar player. Like I knew I could at least accompany myself. I don't know. I didn't know. I know there's so many amazing players here, like so
Hmm.
good. And I didn't go to music school, so I had this like chip on my shoulder that I didn't know anything about music because I didn't go to school for it, or I didn't, spend 10 years in a van just touring the country. I spent 10 years in sports bars playing Brown Eyed Girl 45 times in a row. Uh,
Hey,
but
that is an education in and of itself.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, but to answer your question, I didn't know what no there's no like book. It's like, hey, you should write 5 songs for other people and then you get your own career and then you do this thing or there was no I had no idea. So when I moved to town, I started just going to everything. That's the only thing I knew how to do, and I knew that Broadway wasn't like the people really doing it. Like the people on Broadway are amazingly talented, playing those covers and stuff, and those bands like make great money. Like it's a it's a great thing to have here, but that's not where like songwriters hang out. So I knew that I had heard that and I had kind of inferred that. So I started going to anything that said original music. So like the rounds, one of the first rounds I went to was called Revival, and it was right on Demumbrian and at the Tin Roof there. And my first time I went, the guy who runs it coincidentally is from my hometown. So he's older than me, and we didn't know each other back home. But his name's Rob Snyder. He has 3 Luke Combs kind of big songs. He wrote "She Got the Best of Me," "Middle of Growing Up and Getting Old," and "Dear Today." So he's got big ones,
Yeah.
But at the time, like this was before any of those came out, and he was from my hometown, and he ran this thing. Brent started there. Miranda Lambert played there. Adam Hood played there. Like all that whole crew is from there before I even was in Nashville. Um, But anyways, I met him. We like kind of hit it off, and he told me that he needed someone to kind of help him like run it because it's a lot of work to run one of those, especially a weekly one of those things. It's a lot of work. So I ended up just kind of helping him, and we the this is a long answer, but the reason why I got in with so many songwriters is because I needed to book people for the show, and then people like the best nights we had there. I did it for just over 3 years, and it's still going. Rob does it like monthly now, kind of all over Nashville, and I help out with stuff, and we do festivals out of town and stuff. But the weekly stuff isn't happening anymore. But there was these great nights where like 3 or 4 or 5 of my friends who had just kind of moved to town and were getting started would be able to play a show on the same bill as like people that like Adam Hood and Brent and Dave Kennedy and Chris Canterbury, all these guys that have been in town kind of doing it for a while. And then all those people would meet. And now 5 years later, all those people are writing songs together, releasing songs together. And it feels good. Like I introduced, I don't know if you know Ben Chapman and Meg McCree are, but I introduced them to each other at Revival, and Ben played the Opry this weekend, and Meg sang with him. So
I do know who they are because I listened to your album, and they are on your album.
They are, yeah. They're two of my closest friends, and I'm actually burning the Ben Chapman Peach Jam candle right now. But yeah, there's like real life events that happened at this thing that we did, and it opened so many doors for me just in the like not only musically and writing songs, but I like my friends, like my core group of people that have kind of kept me here through a pandemic and through a million other tough things that we've all gone through. And my first touring experiences were with people I met from Revival, and my first cuts, Gabe Lee, I don't know if you've heard of him, but I met him at a different bar called Bobby's that I still do shows at, but I dragged him to Revival almost every week and was like, come on, like if you're not playing, you're going to come hang out. Like, and now he's kind of blown up in his own way. And it's pretty amazing to kind of take a step back. When you're in it all the time, you don't realize, how much of your life is like connected to something like that. When you step back, you can kind of think about it a little bit bigger.
Well, in addition to that, like you said, you played with bands. I know you played guitar for Brittany Spencer, done a lot of different things. When did you realize you kind of wanted to go, hey, let me see what I can do on my own with my stuff or working with people and see what I've got?
Yeah, I think I wasn't I don't think I found my voice. It sounds so lame to say that out loud. I was trying to think of a cooler way to say it, and there's truly no cool way to say that. I never thought I was a good singer until really 3 years ago, when I stopped trying to kind of sound like other people. And I always wrote songs, and I always thought that I was going to do an artist project eventually, but I wasn't really confident in what I wanted it to sound like, to be honest with you. And I didn't know if anyone would care. Like, I didn't know if any. I go through these things where I'm like, I could make the next like Van Gogh painting and no one would care. Which is a very, I'm sure if you talk to enough songwriters, they will mention that feeling in some way, shape, or form. But my friend Mike Harris, who produced the record, who is in Old Crow Medicine Show, he was Brent's guitar player for years. He played for Brent Cobb. You would probably recognize him. Big black beard. And he played for Stapleton for a couple years, and now he's playing for Old Crow Medicine Show. He found my music, long story how, and we have a mutual friend, Brooke Stevens, who's a photographer. He was like, I want to produce that guy's record. And she was like, really? And he was like, yeah, I want to. And she gave him my phone number. I was playing the Opry, speaking of the Opry, with Brittany, and he busted in our dressing room and was like, where's my favorite songwriter in Nashville? And Brittany's like, oh, I'm right here. And he's like, no, I'm talking about Vinnie. I'm like, oh my God. I was mortified. It was, looking back, it was hilarious, but it was I didn't know him. Like I never met him before. And anyways, I forgot about that story till right now. You're getting an exclusive.
I
Uh,
love it.
and anyways, we started just hanging out, and he he's like, I know the players that I would want for this. Like I know the studio vibe I want to have. Like I I can picture this project. We just got to get some songs, and I had I still God probably went through 300 songs, but got it down to whatever 30, and then kind of worked on those, and like I said, having someone that really cared about my stuff as much as he did was really refreshing. And I through that process, I realized that a lot more people cared about it. And when I started mentioning I was doing a project like that, one thing led to another, and um, got some uh, like studio time booked, and so and it just felt more real. And we did 8 of the 10 songs, like mostly tracked in like 2 days, which was crazy. And then just kind of had to go back and do some guitar solos and do some, uh, some background vocals and stuff like that. But most everything was done last, I guess, June of 22, and then we just the rest of the summer and last fall we were doing like background vocals here and there, and then doing those acoustic tracks. We kind of did those like in 1 or 2 takes, just kind of like try trying to do it efficiently, but also trying to keep it like honest. You know what I mean? I didn't want it to be too polished. Like there's no click tracks. There's no like studio trickery on any of the stuff. Like it's all pretty much just like guys in a room playing. I played the song for the band like once. We played the song 3 times and then we like move on, and that was pretty much it. So if like for better or worse, it's pretty laid out. Like and when you and the cool thing about that, and one of the reasons we did it that way, is because there's so many bands that they do this amazing record and then live they can't reproduce it. Like they
Hmm.
can't do it. And now, like when I go play shows, I feel like I'm giving people exactly what I put on the record. So I'm proud of that still.
I was gonna say that it's something for when people hear hear it on Spotify or wherever, and then go, man, that is exactly how or even better live.
Right.
And I feel like on this record, you were able to probably showcase a little bit of yourself, a few of the different sides of you, because there's a cohesiveness to it, but there's also a little bit of fun and different things that you bring there. Was that what you wanted to do with this debut record?
Yeah, I I shudder to like really call myself straight up like country, but the songs are kind of presented in like in that way. But like Left My Heart Behind, the one that me and Meg did together, that's almost like show tune piano kind of part on it. It's like very upbeat, very like, especially live, like it's um there's no twang to that. Like it's like it's uh it's kind of just a straight ahead rock song. It feels like Doctor My Eyes from the Jackson Brown record. That's kind of similar vibe. But then Proud of What I Did Today, the opening track, the sounds like the beginning of like a Waylon Jennings song. And the truth is, I like Jackson Brown and I like Waylon Jennings, and I should be able to use both of those elements in the same album. You know what I mean? And uh, I think that genre bending stuff is really enjoyable to me because I love artists that kind of step into. I always use Elton John as my example because like his Tumbleweed Connection record is a British guy trying to make a country album, which is amazing. Like he can't do it. It doesn't sound like a country album, but it sounds like a very cool thing that's kind of halfway between. Um, and like I mean Springsteen trying to do Nebraska, which is like basically trying to do a Bob Dylan acoustic record. You can hate on it or love it or whatever, but I just love that he tried to do something that was like unique for him and kind of stretched him out. And that's where I think music is, at least for me, that's what makes music really interesting is when you can kind of push yourself into directions you might not normally go, and still make something that you're really proud of. So, um, yeah,
Well,
I'm really happy with the choices we made.
I was gonna say you made a great album, and And why kind of have it, subtitled? Any particular reason behind that? Because you're like, hey, first one, it's me.
Yeah, I keep telling people it's because Eminem's record was called the Marshall Mathers LP, and we're so similar that I feel like people would get it. Uh,
Hey, wordsmith.
I, man, my name is so hard to spell. I was like, give it to them twice, and I figured maybe they'll remember it after that. Uh, Also because of what you said, because it kind of runs. It's basically the last 5 years of my life, to be honest with you, man. It's the last 5 years, and it's really representative of who I want to be as an artist. So if you like this, then you'll probably like my other stuff too. That's gonna come out. Like um, this is Van Halen 1. You know what I mean? Led Zeppelin 1. It's the similar vein there. Um, Also, I just thought it looked cool on the album cover. Honestly, thought it
I
looked cool.
mean, it's your record. You can do whatever you
Yeah,
want, right?
that's true. It's my money, and I need it now. Uh, yeah, exactly.
Well, we talk about showing the different sides of you, kind of the different ways you wanted people to experience what you love about music. And what was it like to work with so many amazing people? Whether it was Ben Chapman, who, like you said, you kind of came down here, became really good friends. Megan McCree, Adam Hood, so many people that came on this album, and you were able to work with.
Yeah, I don't take any of that for granted, and uh, without sounding like um, to like I knew them when whatever, but like truly the people that I've surrounded myself with are the people that I kind. We always say we landed, like a boat. We all kind of got thrown into this scene, if you want to call it that, at the same time for a bunch of different reasons. I mean, um, Rob Snyder, who I was talking about earlier, that ran Revival, one of his best friends is named Channing Wilson, who you might have heard of before, friends with Adam and all them. But Ben Chapman is from Channing's hometown. So Rob and Channing are best pals. They both have like young Padawans. Padawans are going to be friends, and we ended up we ended up all sharing an office at RCA Studios, um, right around the corner from Studio A, which was so cool. But Ben and I really used it a lot. I mean, Rob and Channing were there sometimes, but Ben and I were there a ton, together and separately. And uh, we have all these like experiences together. I remember turning the corner, like walking out the first day I was there, and Jason Isbell's on the back patio, just like hitting the jewel and being like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Oh, what's up, dude?" Like,
You're like, wait,
you
wait,
know,
you're just hanging out here,
yeah,
like,
what's
yeah.
up, man? He was making, I forget which record what it was, but it was like, it was just one of those like surreal moments, and I always have that as like an experience with my pals. Um, but on the record specifically, I I um I love writing songs by myself. There's one song on the record that's all me, you know, but I get so much more, so many more songs that I am like still love and love singing and love playing are songs I wrote with other people. And there's something about the collaboration process that really doesn't happen anywhere else than Nashville. Like nobody in Philly, where I'm from, like there's songwriters, but nobody co-writes. In LA, I'm sure there's a pop kind of scene, whatever. But it's just different. Like I've heard in LA they go line by line, and that's how you get your percentages. So if you get like two lines in a song, you only get like however many percent that is, which is just like crazy to me. Like you were in the room, you're all hanging out. There's some songs I've written for other people that I might have tweaked some things and hung out and had a good time, but I did that. And then there's some songs that I wrote 98% of, but somebody was just there and we talked it out together, and it probably could have been their idea. You know what I mean? And something about Nashville all being even, um, kind of like brings the everyone's guard down when it comes to collaboration. And I love doing it. I love doing it at least 3 or 4 days a week if I can. And I'll probably write 100 to 110, 115 songs a year. Uh, and like I said, if you make a record every 3 years, that's 300 songs you got to choose from. So it takes a lot. But if you have great friends and you really love the process. I don't know. It's given me a lot of inspiration, I guess is the word, to kind of. And also, I grew up a lot different than a lot of people that are here. A lot of these people grew up in the South and have completely different musical references than I do. And I just
I was
love
gonna say
like
you did not grow up on dirt roads or in the country. You were in the
no. Yeah,
city.
I'm a city kid. And like my wife makes fun of me. She's from Indiana, very much like she grew up on a farm, like the whole thing, and like I'm like terrified of the dark in the country and everything else, but like I'll walk down like a city street at 2 in the morning and not care about it. It's it's just a different mindset. Um, but musically, like I had heard Willie Nelson before, but I didn't really like know anything about him. Before I moved here, someone was like, "Hey, listen to Redheaded Stranger like 5 times in a row, and just get it." And I'm like, this guy has the exact same, almost the exact same phrasing as Frank Sinatra. He's just doing it with different instruments and like slightly behind the beat and doing little stylistic things. But he's like, uh, there's so many things that they both drew from that time period because they're kind of contemporaries. I guess Willie's a little younger, but um, anyways, that's just an example of like seeing the same music from two different lenses can be really fun. And I think that having 9 songs on this record that were co-written kind of like informs a lot of uh, the writing process.
Well, and one of those that I enjoy, and I got for those listening through the shows and everything. This will come out the week after I got to talk. Adam Hood. Basically, you just took what the song title in. You just had the song title, and that's where it came from.
Yeah. So uh, there's an old Temptation song. I grew up on like that Motown kind of soul funky stuff, and there's a song called "I Wish It Would Rain" or something like that. It's like a really old Temptation song, and it's a cool idea, but I wanted to do something like slightly different as far as like an idea goes. And I was like, man, what if like the guy, like it's like a perfect day. It's it's like everything is great. Uh and I forget what I told him. I really wish because it would make the story so much better. But he just like I was just kind of talking about the song, whatever, and he's like, okay, cool, 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 cool. And then he just like got his little notepad and thing. He's like, yeah, yeah, you can play this and then play that. No, no, just let me play it. And then he just played like that whole first verse, and it was like, what? Where did that come from? We were just like hanging out 2 minutes ago, and then he was like, "What do you want to change?" And I ended up changing it slightly, but it was pretty much like the whole thing. And then like I think I was like, "What if the chorus said this and then this?" And then it was like, "Okay, cool, cool, cool." Like I think the whole thing took less than an hour. It was like 45 minutes, and it was finished. And I ended up going back to it maybe a day later, and I sent it to him. I'm like, "How about this?" He's like, "Sounds done." And that was it. Uh, but he's someone that during the pandemic, he has an album called The Shape of Things, um, which is one of my favorites. And the guy who produced that, Oren, produced my first EP a couple years ago and co-produced this last record. Honestly, because I love the way he did Adam stuff. And that Shape of Things album during the pandemic, when I was in my like most insane bored state, I learned the whole thing like cover to cover. I just learned the whole album one day because I was just bored, and I love. I think Adam's a great guitar player. He doesn't give himself enough credit, but he's a great guitar player. Um, I love his voice. I love his sensibilities, and I remember getting to write with him. I was like, I really got to bring it today, and then I literally just said a title, and then like an hour later, he was like, "All right, I'll see ya. I'm getting out of here." I'm like, "Okay, all right, cool, cool, cool." I
You
had
got
it
a
like
song that's
circled on
on
my
the
calendar.
album. I mean, it
Yeah,
worked out.
100%. It totally worked out. It was like circled on my calendar as like this like big day, and it was literally like an hour. It was great.
Well, and you talk about having fun with that, and I know you love to be performing live because there's just something about that.
Yeah.
I always like to ask this question too because especially someone that like you that has either written cuts for other people or just gotten to know a lot of people. What's your favorite song or songs to perform on stage these days, whether it's yours or someone else's?
Yeah. From the record, The last song's called "Ahead of Me." I really enjoy playing that song. K-Row, the one that has been kind of on the most like playlists and stuff the last little bit. That one's cool. It's in this crazy tuning that I feel like I need like a license for. But Mike was like, "What if you played it like this?" And I learned like 3 chords in that tuning, and that's how I played it. But it sounds very educated, and trust me, it's not. Um, but that one's like a cool moment in the show because it's just me and uh, Proud is fun because my guitar player Damon that plays a lot of shows with me, or Mike if he's playing with me, gets to do a really fun like guitar solo section. And there's also something we I went into the record thinking that this was going to be the case, but I don't think anybody else did. That I wanted a lot of background vocals. I love that, like Eagles and Springsteen. There's like 3 people singing the whole time. And it's not quite that much on the record, but when you have someone like, I mean, Mike sang a lot of the background vocals, a couple other people kind of pitched in. Those are my favorite ones to sing when it feels like there's these big moments in the show where there's more than one person singing. There's a great guitar solo. Oh man, this and this big thing. Everyone's happy at the end. Crowd goes wild. Those and that happens like hopefully in every song. There's like a little moment of that. You know what I mean? So we got to play the whole record all the way through at a show, I guess 2 weeks ago, and yeah, it's the best. It's like the most fun you can have. It's so much fun.
Well, and obviously you just released this album. By the time this comes out, maybe about a month out now.
Yeah.
Obviously we're almost done with 2023, so I doubt there's a whole lot more that's happening in 2023 for you. But
Yeah.
what can folks expect from you? Obviously, you're going to be supporting the album, things like that. What's coming up in 2024 that you can tell me and not get yourself in trouble?
Trust me, I can get myself in trouble no matter what. Um, the I'm definitely playing a bunch of stuff in January in town, doing some radio stuff to kind of start. Honestly, after Christmas, you kind of got to start over. Like you got to just get right back on it because it's almost like Nashville takes a nap for all of December. Like no one does anything. It's very funny. Uh, but we're actually going to go back in the studio either the last 2 weeks of January or first 2 weeks of February.
Ooh.
Start working on the next one. So I took kind of a breather from the last stuff I put out to this one, which was like almost 2 years. So I'm hoping that I can at least put some singles out next year and kind of hit the ground running again towards the end of next year. But definitely doing some festivals over the summer. Spring is baby time. We're having a baby in March, so there's that's the biggest collaboration that I've worked on this year, definitely. Uh, Featuring my wife. But besides March and April,
You sure it's not the other way around, featuring you?
yeah, I think you're right. All right, okay, all right. This has been fun, but I mean, come on. The other stuff, I'm hoping. I'm not like blowing any big information here, but I'm hoping to get on tour with some bigger artists next year and be opening some shows. So once that is finalized, that will be out in the world and for mass consumption. But definitely festivals. I like doing these songwriter festivals and summertime stuff always comes up to do that kind of stuff. I play guitar for an artist named Fancy Haygood, who does a bunch of shows. So we have a couple more of those for the end of the year, and we'll wrap it up. Put this year in a bow.
I was gonna say, and you will definitely be busy next year because, having a kid that you will be busy.
Yeah, you have any great advice? I feel like we need to give like what's like one thing that maybe people won't tell you, but you should know anyway.
You will not sleep.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think your schedule will work to your benefit.
Yeah.
I'm, because you stay up late. Typically, I'm assuming
Right.
babies are up at all different hours. Also, just be prepared for it to poo everywhere.
Well, yeah, yeah. Would you say that some people say you should sleep when the baby sleeps? Is that real or no?
If you can try,
Ah,
because you also got the rest of your life to live. I will say this, don't, for us, obviously you change your life up, but
mhm.
don't change it up so much. Like if you go out, like go out to a lunch or whatever, bring the baby with you, and it'll hopefully work out in the long term, and they'll just get used to it, and people will enjoy it. And do you know if it's a boy or a girl yet?
It is a baby girl.
Ooh, welcome to Team Girl Dad. They are wonderful. Mine has a ton of sass and is way too smart at 5, and I'm terrified to see what happens when she's 16.
Nice. I'll check in on you in 11 years. You'll probably have a lot more bourbon in your system at that point.
Oh yeah. There are certain days where I need a little bit extra, and I need the high proof.
I totally understand. Maybe I'll be up to 100 proof by then.
Maybe. Well, Vinny, this has been a blast. I have had so much fun. We'll definitely have to do it again. And cheers, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I like a job where you could drink at the same time.
It's not a bad gig.
No, it's really not.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.